Welcome to another OU Insider Under the Visor YouTube Live. My name is Brandon Drum. I'm here with Parker Thune. We got Spencer Forsythe on the board, and we are here to talk about a lot of stuff going on with the transfer portal, basketball, football. There's a lot of recruiting stuff going on. We had the Rivals camp this past weekend. A lot of stuff to talk about there. Coaches are out and about. Evaluations right now. A lot of stuff to talk about there. And of course, disclaimer, since the podcast, I said about topping and had to note Diddy that, on the podcast yesterday. None of that's going to be happening today on the podcast. So sorry for you guys that had to listen to that yesterday in the old, I don't even know what you want to call that, little immaturity. But speaking of Parker, we got to pay some bills first. I'll let you take away right now, and then we will get talking about some Damonic Williams.
Yes, folks, this live stream is brought to you by Mando. Now, BO from all directions, or does that 3-in-1 shampoo leave you needing a second shower just a few hours after the first? I hope none of my guys out there are still using 3-in-1 shampoo in the year of our Lord 2024. But if you are, guess what? From the founders of Lumi, Mando Whole Body Deodorant is helping men conquer their odor in a brand new way. Formulated with mandelic acid, Mando has long-lasting 72-hour odor control that actually stops odor before it starts. And Mando's cologne quality scents were created with men in mind. Pro tip here, try their best-selling scent, Bourbon Leather. It's a game changer, and you can get it in a wide array of various products. I myself own a lot of the products in the Mando line. That Bourbon Leather body wash, I've got it in a travel size. It goes with me everywhere when I'm out on the road. Now, we got a special offer. New customers get $5 off your starter pack with our exclusive code and link. The code is INSIDER at shopmando.com, shopmando.com. Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. Luckily, again, folks, we have a discount code to help get you hooked on your new favorite whole body deodorant on the market. New customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack when you use code INSIDER at shopmando.com, shopmando.com. And Brandon, OU has been shopping in the portal for the last several weeks for a big-time defensive lineman. They got one in Jermaine Lole, but arguably the biggest fish in the entire portal, not just on the defensive line, but period, overall, across the entirety of the college football landscape, is Damonic Williams. It is Wednesday evening. We do not have a decision. You would expect that is forthcoming tomorrow. And what's very interesting about this, and we talked about it on the podcast, is that right now you got 4 programs that all feel like they got a shot. Nobody would be shocked. No fan of any of those 4 programs would be shocked if they heard their favorite team's name called when it comes time for Damonic Williams to make his choice. But by the same token, nobody is all that confident either, because you can't be all that confident.
I agree with that. Though I think Oklahoma feels like they're very, 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 very much in this, and there is confidence on the Oklahoma side. Ironically, the funny thing is like everybody assumes, since he stayed that extra 3 hours at LSU today, which I want to make it very clear to a lot of people, he stayed extra time at Oklahoma. He stayed till like 6 o'clock at night at Oklahoma on the 3rd day. Like, he spent an extraordinary amount of time, because they called me. Damonic Williams literally called me when I was walking into the Thunder game, and I was walking down to our seats. So I had to walk back up, and this was game 1, mind you. So I had to walk back up and go to a quiet spot so I could talk to him. And they were on the road and just had left like 30, 45 minutes prior. So if that doesn't tell you anything, like Oklahoma got an extended period of time as well, a long extended period of time in their stay with Dominic Williams as well. And so I know people are making a big deal about that, and there's probably some validity in there, right? But I also know that they try to make concessions at every stop to try to give people ample opportunity. And they made that very clear from day one. When I talked to his handler, agent, whatever, Cordell, and he called me, I think it was the Wednesday before the visit. So it was the day before the visit or day and a half before the visit took place to Oklahoma. And I asked him, I said, could this be a one and done deal? And he said, no, the plan will be stuck to. We are going to go see every school. Dominic did not get to go through the process. And so they did that. They held true to everything. The one thing I will say is that the teams that they visited changed because originally Oregon was supposed to get a visit. That didn't happen. Um, Texas A&M was supposed to be in there. That didn't happen. I'm trying to think of the other. And then LSU came in, Johnny come lately, kind of at the end and made a push. Colorado was supposed to happen. That didn't happen. And so there was, and we wrote about that on OU Insider. Said, man, look, like I think OU Texas is kind of the guaranteed ones. And then they were talking about maybe Missouri, maybe LSU, maybe Oregon. And then they had one set up to Colorado as the third visit, and that didn't take place. He swapped that with Missouri. Oregon was supposed to be after Missouri. He swapped that with LSU. So there was some juggling that took place. And I think when you look at the fact that Oklahoma offered his brother, and there's people that want to call it, quote, a Hail Mary. They want to call it, no, they really like genuinely loved his brother and they think he is offerable and it's a committable offer. So, like at this juncture, I think why you didn't see other schools make that same move is because it looked very disingenuous at that point. Like if Texas would have offered, or Missouri or LSU would have offered his brother, it would have looked like you're just trying to do what Oklahoma's doing to try to make it look like you're on board with this as well. So there is a lot of different ways to look at this. In talking to people today, I know Oklahoma's been making their final pitches. They've been doing everything that they can to try to make this thing happen. And there's a couple of people that think he's going to Oklahoma. And so there's that. But then on the flip side, I'm getting sources elsewhere that have nothing to do with LSU saying he's probably a heavy lean. And then right after that, literally 3 hours later, like, okay, well, he did not sign anything with LSU. He left without committing. He left without saying yes or no to them. So now things are up in the air with LSU. So it kind of looks like it's an LSU OU battle when you talk to people, but don't get it twisted. Do not write off, as Parker was saying earlier, Texas or Missouri. Now, there's things we can get into after all this is laid out and everything's done, because you're going to find out some truths, right? Did they enjoy every visit the way it was publicly portrayed? There's a lot of things out there that are rumors that you can. Yeah, I'm trying not to say too much here. That can be skeptical. That you can be skeptical about, and that's why we've kind of stayed. Like Oklahoma's done everything that they were able to do, and they continue to do that and more, right? Whether it's NIL, whether it's relationships, whether it's making Williams and his family and his handler feel really comfortable. They've done all of those things. Now it's up to them to make a decision because Oklahoma has basically laid it out there and said, what do you want? What do you need? We will make that thing happen. If you don't want to come here, okay, it is what it is. Oklahoma's going to be just fine. They're going to be just fine at defensive tackle. That said, you go from good or potentially very good to damn near great if you add somebody of that talent. And that is the difference between, that could be the difference between playing for an SEC title and not playing for an SEC title. So that's why this is such a big deal to the staff and to the other programs that are trying to recruit him.
Boy, if they pull this off, man, that
Yeah.
instantly becomes, I would say, one of the top 3 wins of the Venables era on the recruiting trail slash port. It's all one thing at this point. Recruiting,
Mm.
portal, the pursuit of new talent, if that's what you want to
Yeah.
broadly
And
call it. David Stone, Peyton Bowen, those were 2 enormous wins for Oklahoma, 2
yeah,
hard fought wins.
Jaden Jackson.
Devon Mitchell kind of falls into that same camp too,
Yeah.
with what Oklahoma had to do down the stretch to hold off Miami. But especially because of who you went up against, who you
Mm.
had to go up against in order to land Dominic Williams, and the amount of effort and resource and blood, sweat, and tears that you had to sink into this whole process, it instantly becomes, in my mind, just as big, if not bigger, than the acquisition of Stone and the acquisition of Bowen, which I think are looked upon right now as the 2 most important wins on the trail for Oklahoma throughout the Venables era. And after this coming
Yes,
season,
sir.
we may look back on Oklahoma beating out Texas for Deion Burks as one that certainly falls into that
Yeah.
category as well. But in terms of the importance in the moment of the addition, we knew when they got Peyton Bowen, okay, that's seismic. We knew when they got David Stone, that's seismic as well.
Yeah.
If Dominic Williams chooses Oklahoma, seismic maybe isn't even a strong enough word. This does wonders for Oklahoma's defensive outlook heading into the SEC in 2024.
Yeah. This would just be huge. And I do want to make it clear that I don't think anybody really knows where he's going at this juncture. If they say they do, bullshit. So I'm just going to leave it like that. I mean, straight up, straight up. And
There's
so,
and yes, like to answer the inevitable question, there is some optimism on the OU side, but again, there's some
yeah,
optimism from pretty much every side here.
yeah. Well, mm, I think there's waning optimism at certain schools, but again, that's why I haven't come out and said outright which ones those are, because anybody that's covered recruiting for defensive tackles, no matter what school you're at, maybe sans Texas A&M in the last 3 years, and even they've been burned a few times lately. So, you just learn to let it fall how it's supposed to fall, right? Like, because if you don't, it ends up biting you in the butt on some occasions. I mean, look, DJ Hicks, when I went down there and we spent all that money because they said he's going to Oklahoma, and then he changes his mind literally 30 minutes prior to walking up on the podium with ESPN. So there's that. But as far as like the uh what it does for Oklahoma in the SEC, Parker, I mean, I think that landing Dominic Williams would be a kind of like the Kool-Aid man jumping through the wall and going, "Oh yeah," like it's kind of a welcome party for
Good way,
Oklahoma.
jumping through the wall and going, what now?
Oh yeah, yeah.
No, say it like you said it before.
Oh yeah. I mean, but that's kind of what it is. It's like, hey, we're here. So, and you better get used to it. Todd Bates is a bad dude, but that's if he lands at Oklahoma. I still think Todd Bates is a bad man on the recruiting trail. I think 24 has proven that, and I think 25 is looking to prove that again if things can continue to trend in that direction.
Yeah, and
But
like, look, we don't. Oklahoma doesn't need to land Dominic Williams for that point to have been proven.
no,
I think there was more credence lent to that notion last month when Trent Wilson committed to Oklahoma,
yeah,
and that's why it was so idiotic. And we talked about it at the time. That's why it was so idiotic less than a year ago when people wanted to call Todd Bates a flop as a recruiter because the one The one big name that he landed in the 2023 class, Derek LeBlanc, decided after 4 months on campus that he was going to transfer. That's still the same dude that was the Rivals Recruiter of the Year in 2019 for the
Yeah.
Clemson Tigers. He didn't suddenly lose his ability to recruit elite talent when he made the transition from Clemson to Oklahoma. It was always going to come around, just like it was for DeMarco Murray when he swung and missed entirely in his first full recruiting cycle as a position coach
Yeah.
at Oklahoma. It was always going to come around, and it's coming around right now before your very eyes.
So I the funny thing is like you look at the 2020 cycle and he got Brian Breesy, the number one player in the country that year, right? And in 2021, he landed a few of the top 150 guys. So he comes to Oklahoma in 2022, and Justin Johnson he was a huge pickup from Tulane on his face. Like
Jeffrey Johnson.
remember Jeffrey Johnson, excuse me, Jeffrey Johnson. He was, but he was a massive pickup for Oklahoma. Everybody in the country wanted him, and they turned away. Now, bad look.
Oh boy.
They turned away the dude that went to LSU and dominated. What was his name?
Mekhi Wingo?
Wingo, yeah. Remember? Because he visited and they took Jeffrey Johnson over him because of size. I do know that for a fact. But it just they still ended up with, I mean, the last you get Grayson Halton. Like you land a really good defensive tackle just by showing up. And I think those are the type of, from Oregon, mind you, no less. You flipped him from Oregon. So those are the type of things that I think people tend to overlook because of what happened in 23 with David Hicks and the fact that Derek LeBlanc left. But then 24, I mean, out of the ballpark, right? And 25 is starting to look that way. And then you in the between all that, you got Dejon Terry that came in. And that was one that nobody thought Oklahoma had a chance. He's going back to Mississippi. His mom's sick. He shows up to Oklahoma. He doesn't leave Oklahoma. He shows up and just stays. And so that was a shocker. I think that shocked us. So, I mean, Bass is a bad dude. And so win or lose, he's transformed that defensive tackle room. You look at that defensive tackle room right now, and it just changes everything, right? Like it looks completely different than what it did when he arrived. You have NFL guys in that room, like across the board. When he showed up, that was not the case. And we talked about that on the podcast the other day. Here you go, Blake Wilson. Hey, Brandon and Parker, appreciate you, Blake. How you guys been? We've been good, man. Appreciate that. How about you, Parker? Have you been good?
I would say I have been good. Yes.
Yeah. Doing well, doing well. All right. What I guess I guess I want to know how to pronounce the kid's name. So I'm
Which
trying
kid?
The new offer. I don't want to butcher his first name here.
Oh, Javier. Javier Suggs.
Javier. Yeah, I'm gonna refrain from butchering it and let you say Javier Suggs. Okay.
Yeah, it's Javier. Like if you pronounced Javier phonetically, Javier.
Yeah. So Javier Suggs, Oklahoma offered. Everybody kind of freaked out about that. And they're like, well, that means Dominic Williams is gone. And I know you texted me and was like, you need to find out what's going on. So I had to make some calls. Like, I don't know that people were very happy, but I was like, okay, texting people, DMing people, calling people like at 11 o'clock at night. What the hell's going on? Like, what's up with this? They're like, dude, contingency plans. You got to have contingency plans if things go south. We don't feel like that's happening right now, but you got to have contingency plans. And you look at everybody that's offered, Suggs, and you look at everything. I know everybody looks at it, Grand Valley State, Parker. Well, I mean, hey, I got 2 words for you, Jared Verse.
Yeah. No, elite defensive line dudes. And here's what people need to understand. It's not always a case of, an elite dude slipped through the cracks and wound up at an FCS school like Albany or a D2 school like Grand Valley State. No, everybody develops on a different timeline.
Yep.
Just because a dude's not a stud in high school doesn't mean he won't be a stud in college, right? Last week in the NFL draft, you saw a two-star cornerback signee at Toledo named Quinion Mitchell go in the first round of the Philadelphia
Yep.
Eagles. So sometimes guys are just behind the curve. There's a variety of factors that can come into play there, but elite dudes are going to get found once they start playing elite football, no matter what level they're playing at. And it was time to get involved in the Javier Suggs sweepstakes
Mm-hmm.
for Oklahoma because, again, if you get Dominic Williams, you don't ever have to make a call to that Suggs kid. And he's not going to think twice about it. Like, he's not going to feel slighted by that, right? Like, with as many schools as are recruiting him, he'll just think, oh, well, I never got a call from Oklahoma. Again, that's kind of weird, but whatever. Um, but with how fast everything goes down throughout the course of a portal recruitment, right? We're sitting here and it's been, I think, 2 weeks to the day since Dominic Williams entered the transfer portal. And that
Yep.
feels like an eternity in portal terms.
Yeah.
With how quickly everything happens, you could not wait to jump into the Javier Suggs sweepstakes because they just got started over the weekend. That's when the big offers started rolling in for Suggs. And so you were going to get left in the dust if you didn't throw that offer out to him and start building that relationship. And again, maybe you need to continue to foster that relationship. Maybe you don't at all. Maybe best case scenario, Dominic Williams is a Sooner. You don't got to think twice about your defensive line the rest of the way from here on out. You can roll into fall camp, and you know what you're dealing with in terms of personnel. But if Dominic Williams is a Longhorn tomorrow, or he's a Tiger of either the Louisiana or Missouri variety, well, you're not going to be up a creek without a paddle because you do have that initial foundation of a relationship with Javier Suggs, and you can pivot all of your efforts relationally and financially towards getting him on board.
Yep. Totally agree, man. You missed out there. Like you said, I think Oklahoma will, I think it'll be tough for people to top Oklahoma. So I wouldn't do that. I beat Oklahoma, NIL wise, if it gets to that point with Suggs, just because generally it's pretty well known now that Oklahoma has the has the money at this
We
juncture.
have
Yeah, I was
a
going to
super
read
chat.
Gonzalez. Yeah, so Robert Gonzalez, appreciate the $5. Graduated, moved out to Phoenix 2 years ago. Anyone at OU Insider cover the West Coast I should follow? Any recruits to be on the lookout west. So we cover everybody, all sides, borders. Like we go and like I've been to Phoenix and covered recruits. I've been to LA multiple times. Florida probably 20 times. Gone all over the state of Florida. Parker and I have been to Louisiana together. We've been to Texas, Kansas, Missouri, Arkansas. Yeah, you name it, Alabama, like Georgia. We've done it all. So we cover, Parker and I will be all over the United States if we have to be. Right now, I would look at 2026 quarterback Tate Reynolds is a guy. I know Oklahoma was there today, seeing him and watching him play baseball. He's a quarterback that Oklahoma was offered in the 26 class that they really, really like. So just a fantastic athlete.
A couple
Go
other
ahead.
West Coast kids
Go ahead.
just like 2026 and 27, yes, there will be guys out west that Oklahoma takes a hard look at. In the 2025 class, two names for you out west. One would be Darius Afalava, Lehigh, Utah, Skyridge High School, the number one prospect in the state.
Yep.
Now, he visited for the spring game, got an offer at the spring game. He's gonna OV with Oklahoma. The Sooners got a leg to stand on in that race. They made a really strong first impression. He's childhood friends with Anthony Agumaro out of Elgin,
Yep.
who obviously we favor to land at Oklahoma, especially if Agumaro lands at Oklahoma. The Sooners are going to have a very real shot with Darius Afalava. Now, I think it's premature to count chickens there because he's only taken one visit at this point. It was a good visit, but one visit is one visit, and the relationship is very new. But Oklahoma's resume, or I'm sorry, Bill Bedenbaugh's resume, Oklahoma's penchant for development kind of speaks for itself. That's definitely somebody that could wind up in Oklahoma's class. I'll throw another one out there, and this is maybe I might go a little bit off course here, but Josiah Sharma, 3-star defensive lineman out of Folsom, California. I've had it reiterated to me that if Oklahoma wants Josiah Sharma, they will get Josiah Sharma. He's a 6'6", 300-pound defensive tackle, two-way guy technically, but Oklahoma likes him at defensive tackle as opposed to offensive lineman. And he was on campus last month, end of March, early April, can't recall. He was on campus pretty recently to watch a practice. The problem is that Oklahoma obviously already has Trent Wilson committed. They've already got Kamari Moore committed, and they are in very good shape with Cole Breeler, with Christian Evans, and with Floyd Boucard. So is Josiah Sharma going to be somebody that Oklahoma takes? Well, I think my answer to that would be not in an ideal world. But let me bring up another defensive lineman, and one that is not from the West Coast, but I think kind of falls into that same camp, kind of, with Josiah Sharma, a guy where I'm not quite sure if he's going to be a take or not, but there's been some very intriguing developments in Oklahoma's recruitment of 3-star defensive end Cade Petrick from North Dakota. Remember that name, Petrick. It's Pietrzak. So spelled a little odd. Cade Petrick, he dropped to top 4 today. Some may have noticed that. Oklahoma, Nebraska, Wisconsin, and Kansas State are his Final 4 schools. Now, we have actually reported on him pretty extensively, all things considered, at OUinsider.com. It is the most difficult recruitment to crack as far as information is concerned that I've ever dealt with. And I dealt with Grant Bricks for a freaking long time. But at least you could get that kid on the phone. Sometimes it took days, if not weeks, but you could get him on the phone. Cade Petrick has never done an interview with anyone, not a single one. And I'm sorry, I will not be making the 13-hour drive up to Fargo, North Dakota to knock on the door of his school anytime soon. But gotten some good insight, some good third-party insight, that is, from the OU side on Cade Petrick. And let's just say, that kid has some fans within the Switzer Center. B, he was on campus at the beginning of April. That visit went very well. And C, and I mentioned this in an update on OU Insider on Petrick on Monday morning, sometimes a guy like that might not seem in April or May like he has a spot in the class, but things can change very drastically within the course of 4 to 6 weeks. Because, for instance, you rewind to this time last year, I wasn't convinced the Sooners were going to take Wyatt Gilmore. They had they were in play for some very talented defensive ends. Williams Winery, obviously, we know how that one ended. Jay Sean Ross at the time, that was before he and Oklahoma went their separate ways, but Jay Sean Ross was a guy that they were in good with. Kellen Lindstrom was somebody that Oklahoma had really, really started to heat up with. So the thing with Wyatt Gilmore was you weren't sure whether Oklahoma was going to be able to take him or not. And I think it's kind of the same deal with Petrick right now. But things have definitely kind of turned on their head in the recruitment of Kobe Sellers. And on a similar timetable, I think it's been more gradual. And I always kind of got the sense that A&M was where Max Granville would end up when all was said and done. But A&M has definitely seized the bull by the horns in that recruitment. That was a guy that many had penciled into Oklahoma's class on the edge. And now he's not out of the picture by any means. Oklahoma is still recruiting him, but A&M is definitely where the trend is there. And then you got Smith Orogbo. He's taken 9 official visits, still getting new offers. He's very wide open. Yeah, Oklahoma feels good about their chances, but how good can you feel about a kid that's taken 9 official visits? And so it's very plausible that as chaos elsewhere created a natural landing spot for Gilmore in Oklahoma's class, I think the same could happen with Petrick. And so that's a name with which I would familiarize myself, definitely tape with which I would familiarize myself, because he's got some fun tape. He is a fun football player on film. That is not 3-star film. He's a 3-star right now. It won't stay that way. And there are other recruiting services that have already come around on Petrick and bumped him into their top 200, 250. That's where he belongs. He is a very, very good football player.
Yeah, another guy that Oklahoma on the West Coast people didn't know the name of because Oklahoma's in a decent spot with him already is Tumahini Tapoy or Topoy. And he's a 4-star defensive tackle out of Mater Day. So 6'3", 320 pounds. I think he's a top 150 kid on Rivals, top 200 kid, something like that on Rivals. But he's a guy, I believe, Boomer 129. I think that's one of the people that Bates is out in Kelly seeing. I know you were probably asking if he was seeing Dominic Williams. Dominic Williams lives in Fort Worth right now. So he's not, I don't think they're in Cali for that. The other thing I was going to discuss with you, as far as D tackle goes, and just between 25, 26, 27, Parker, like it can't lay out much better than it does for OU, right? And Todd Bates. You got Danny Bill in Arkansas, with Arkansas looking like just a crap show. That looks great for Oklahoma in 26. You also got to look down there a little bit further in Arkansas as well. And oh my gosh, the kid's name, Anthony Kennedy, I think is his name, Kennedy Jr. or something like that.
Anthony
Out of
Kennedy,
Maumelle.
yes.
Yeah, 4-star defensive tackle out of Maumelle. I've talked with him a few times. Big old athletically. He's so athletic that he plays tight end in 7-on-7. And he's a good close. He's pushing close to 300 pounds already. He's like 6'5", 6'4", something like that. And he's a big dude. And then obviously you got Taj Overton in state, who Taj Overton, I think, is potentially a top 10 defensive tackle in the country. And so that's kind of the deal. I do want to I just, as far as 2025 defensive line goes, if there was a surprise player, Parker, that you think Oklahoma has a surprise chance to get, who do you think that would be?
Are we just talking from the state of Arkansas here?
No, no, in the nation.
Or? Okay.
Across,
2026 defensive lineman.
no, 25.
Oh, 25, 25.
Yeah.
Okay. Honestly, I think I kind of already blew my cover on that one. I think it would be Cade Petrick, because again, if you're not an OUinsider.com VIP member,
Well, there's another. Go ahead though. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go with Petrick. No, go. Tell it.
If you're not an OUinsider.com premium member, you probably didn't know Cade Petrick's name until today when he announced his top 4. But if you are a member, again, you've known for quite some time, there's some steam here between him and Oklahoma. And it's a weird deal when a kid literally won't talk to anyone in the media and just kind of keeps the lowest of profiles. And so you got to kind of you got to be really plugged in to be able to get reliable intel on a kid like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess the long and short of it is that he's probably not somebody that even now is on a ton of OU fans' radars, but don't be shocked. Don't be shocked if he winds up in the class. We'll stay abreast of that one as best we can for you over at OUinsider.com. But that is a name that I'll be quite transparent. That was not really on my radar. Even when I found out he was visiting in early April, I was like, okay, well, that's nice. He's coming through, seeing the sights. Did not figure that I would be writing the words I was writing about Cade Petrick some 48 hours later.
before we get to Robert Gonzalez super chat, and we'll get to it in just a second.
Yeah, what's your
Appreciate
answer?
you, Isaiah Gibson.
Really?
He's taking an OV on the 21st. So yeah.
Whoa, that's a bomb.
No, I we've talked about that, or I guess I did in a chat. Sorry. Yeah,
Yeah, we gotta have a note for that. All too easy to miss it in the chat.
yeah. No, I mean I think it's
That's
well
quite a
known.
nugget.
It's on his profile on Rivals and now and 24/7. So I mean like it's known. Yeah, he's OVing on the 21st. He is. I believe he's been once to Oklahoma. He did not make it back because something happened. He tried to visit again. Then he eventually went to USC, committed. But his relationship with Miguel Chavis has been extraordinary. And Oklahoma is the Will and Dylan NIL right now, and they are trying to make this bad boy work for them. And if they could you imagine if you pull off Isaiah Gibson, Trent Wilson, and let's just, for argument's sake, just Cole Breeler, CJ Nixon, and let's just say Christian Evans. And you kind of want to go with um Backus, but or Bacard, excuse me, Bacard. But I don't know that Oklahoma would have room for Floyd Bacard because if they did get Floyd Bacard as well, one of them would have to get
Yeah,
pushed to
well,
the pushed to the side.
and
I
again,
just
I
don't
think we
believe it.
mentioned this on the podcast. There will always be room for Floyd Bacard. If Floyd
Yep.
Bacard wants to be a Sooner, they will find a way to make it work. It might come at the expense of someone else, but they'll find a way to make it work.
Yeah. There you
Uh,
go. All right. Robert
second
Gonzalez.
second super chat from
Yep.
Robert, who says, "Thanks, guys. Much respect." Also, originally from Houston, so pulling a DB out of Klein Oak over UT and A&M is a huge win for me. Need the Island Boy next. Yeah, and I guess we talked about it before it happened because I think there was a pretty solid understanding all the way around that Oklahoma was going to get Cortland Guillory, but uh, it bears repeating. That is a very impressive win on the recruiting trail by Jay Valai because kids from Klein Oak, kids from schools in that area, especially kids whose relationships with schools in much closer proximity, like Texas, far predate their relationships at Oklahoma. Kids like that, Brandon, they don't often wind up coming all the way up to Norman, Oklahoma to play their college football. And what's most remarkable to me about all of it is that from offer to commitment, Oklahoma's pursuit of Cortland Guillory lasted less
Yep.
than 90 days.
That was
90
crazy.
days.
That's crazy. But I mean, Jay Valai at work, man. But here's the funny thing: in that span of time, how many times did he visit Oklahoma? 3, 4 times?
I think it might have been four, at least three.
Yeah, well, yeah. It was. I mean, anytime there was something going on that somebody that it was, important to visit, Guillory was there, and from my understanding, he quickly rose the rungs of importance for Oklahoma at cornerback, and I'm of the belief right now that and everybody wants to talk about Kobe Sellers and Texas A&M. I just think at the end of the day, you had to make a decision because you weren't going to take both. Like that just wasn't going to happen because you already got Malik Hawkins on board. You've just landed Cortland Guillory. Decisions have to be made. Numbers still matter in the world of college football. There's a limited number of scholarships. You can only have so many at a position, and the cornerback room is young as it is. So you have the in-state kid that is comparable to Kobe Sellers. And granted, I know Oklahoma wasn't thrilled that they were falling out of favor there, but they were equally thrilled that they were falling into favor with Tristan Haynes and Cole Albert. And for my money, I take Tristan Haynes because You know what else he brings to the table? The return game. He is electric. Whether punt, whether kick return, the dude can flat out. He's just great in space. And so you add that to the fact that it's just another Oklahoma kid on board. And like you talked about last night, like, what if you're Nate Roberts? CJ Nixon pops, Tristan Haynes pops. Outside of Jaden Nickens, who they've kind of parted ways, and there's not really much to say about that. You're the only lonely that isn't on board with Oklahoma. That's one of the top kids in the state of Oklahoma in 2025. And does that bring added pressure with the fact that your brother's playing there? I mean, there's a pretty cool and pretty, I don't know, cool is a good word, but there's a pretty interesting, you know, dynamic dichotomy between, Ohio State and Oklahoma and everything that encompasses both those recruitments, right? Because there's so much going on over here with the Oklahoma stuff. And then you've got the Ohio State where there's relative and relatives that live up there. But is that enough to hold on? If Oklahoma can go out there and prove that Bauer Sharp and his brother Jake Roberts are going to get the ball thrown to them quite a bit this season, or at least even moderately this season, does that not re-peak Nate Roberts' interest in Oklahoma? And we haven't even got to Tom Brame. So
Let's get to Desan Brame then, because the Nate Roberts discourse, I think, will be pretty evergreen over the next few months. Not much is going to change between now and September. It's in September and thereafter that I think things have the potential to change.
yeah, so look, Desan Brame, he's not budging from the 21st. And Oklahoma wants most of their main guys either on the 14th or the 21st. They want as close as they can get to that final visit for these guys. And so Champion Barbecue is a perfect world for Oklahoma on the 21st to get Son Brame in. Probably not going to happen. He seems to be really, really sticking to his guns with Oregon. That said, I know that Joe John Finley and Seth Luttrell have been actively working Brame. They went to go see him last Friday. Now there's talks of June 14th. And if Oklahoma can get him in on June 14th, that's what they want to do because they're hoping they can get him in on June 14th. He can remember why he loved them so much to begin with and why he continues to come down to Oklahoma when he gets a chance to do so. And he's done it on several occasions this spring and winter. But the other issue is Lincoln Cure, right? Like if Lincoln Cure was to somehow choose Oregon, I think that's the best case scenario for Oklahoma. Because that, even though they want to take two, if you're Desan Brame, you don't sit there and go, okay, well, I want to go up there and share reps with Lincoln Cure, right? You could be outside of Trinae Washington. That's assuming they use Trinae at tight end. You would be the only other guy there unless Nate Roberts decided he was going to show up late and flip, which still is such a speculative topic at this point. So you're the guy if you're Desan Brame.
Yeah. And he's been to Oklahoma a lot.
Mm-hmm.
A lot. Like we have, and I'm not convinced we have them all. We have 7 Oklahoma visits logged in the database at rivals.com. So he's been to Oklahoma more than he's been to Oregon. What does that matter? Well, I mean, like to a certain extent, it doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot when Nate Roberts just committed to Ohio State, a place that he's been, 4 or 5 times over a school that he's visited a dozen times in Oklahoma. So that's not necessarily the indicative factor. But I think what you just said deserves to be rehashed and reemphasized, which is that you're rooting for Oregon right now in the Lincoln Cure sweepstakes. You would like to see Lincoln Cure quacking because he's not going to be a Sooner at this point. That's just not happening. It would make your life easier as a Sooner fan, if Oregon found a way to snag Lincoln Cure from under the nose of Kansas State, and all of a sudden you can tell Desan Brame, uh, come to Oklahoma and be the guy, or go to Oregon and be a guy.
Yeah. I mean, it's real simple. So, I, and if that doesn't happen, I'm just going to sit here and tell you guys, I fully expect them to go portal at tight end. I do. And I know your boy from Nebraska. I know
So no
that.
Chase Lofton, no Dakota Terrell, huh?
I know. I don't know how much Dakota Terrell loves football. I think that's a fair question. It's a valid question. Now he's got time to prove that. He's going to go camp at Oklahoma. And I hope the camp goes better for him there than it did at Rivals, because it was, yeah, like, and I want people to, when I say that, people automatically are going to go, oh, well, he just stinks. No, this is a basketball guy that's never gone to a camp like that and never seen the physicality at a camp like that. Was just so foreign to him. It was like you or I going to France and not knowing French. Luckily, I took 4 years of French,
I
but
did not.
there you go. You would be lost. And so, um, I just, I don't know, man. Like he looked lost. He looked lost. He looked out of place a little bit. And that's not just, that doesn't mean he's a bad player. It means that he's not used to that type of environment. Now he's now got a chance. He has a taste of it, right? Now, when he goes to the Oklahoma camp, he knows what he's getting himself into. It's going to be physical like that. There's probably going to be more athletes at that Oklahoma camp than there was at the Rivals camp, because the Rivals camp was just secluded to the DFW area and the state of Texas. Oklahoma camp's going to have all the good players from all over the country, and they're all going to come in at once. That Oklahoma's recruiting. They've all been invited there, and they're all going to compete because they want scholarships and they want the eyes of the coaches. So he's going to have to prove to them that he's willing to step up to that competition. I think Wit from Wagner last year, right? Like, I think that's a perfect. They're almost the same. Like, he had a chance to get a scholarship and just it didn't happen. He just wasn't there for the moment. So you kind of hope Dakota Terrell shows up, has a better love and a grasp of football and the understanding of the environment, and excels. Because if he does, I think Oklahoma will push for him. If not, again, your guy from Nebraska, Dakota Terrell, I just don't know that that's going to be how it goes. And they maybe go transfer portal. I don't know. That's just my gut at this juncture. That's just my gut. So, all right. Do we want to talk
Don't say
Rivals?
basketball.
No, I'm not. We'll do that at the end. Let's talk Rivals camp and some of the things that we gathered Oklahoma wise during that camp that I think that the fans will be 100% interested in, whether it's defensive line, whether it's wide receiver, cornerback, linebacker. I have to sit here and tell you, first and foremost, Marcus James is going to be flat out nasty as a stand-up edge rusher.
Yeah,
Flat
man.
out
Yeah, man. Like,
nasty.
that is his game right
Unblockable.
there. That is his game. Like that. That's probably going to be the closest thing to Nick Benito that you've had since Nick Benito.
Yeah, and he's already 222, just so we're clear.
Yeah. And so maybe like a better comp would be an R. Mason Thomas, kind of. But even so,
But probably bigger at this juncture of his career.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Nick was never very big.
Mm-mm.
I think he topped out at maybe 230, 235. So he'll be a little bit bigger than a Nick Benito, but like the toolsiness that Nick Benito displayed off the edge, Marcus James has a lot of that same ability. He struggled at the UA camp in Dallas because he was working as an off-ball linebacker.
Yeah.
We got to see at the Rivals camp what he excels at, and that is coming off the edge. That is getting after the quarterback, and I think his role at Oklahoma will play to that strength. We know that Kevin Sperry is really good. He won the QB MVP. That shouldn't be a shock to anybody. You know what kind of quarterbacks Oklahoma recruits? They're never scrubs. Kevin Sperry is the real deal.
Mm-hmm.
His younger brother, Rozzie Sperry, also really, really sharp. He was the youngest kid there, more than held his own.
Yeah.
He made the showcase, which I I don't know necessarily how best to explain that other than there's a select few at the end of the camp
I think it was
uh,
like 7 or
that get
8.
to
Yeah.
yeah, they get to participate in some of the drills at the very, very end, basically like an opportunity to put the best against one another. And Rozzie Sperry made the cut amongst
Mm-hmm.
some of the top
The
quarterbacks
only
there.
eighth grader there, and he made the cut. Yep.
Yeah, and there were
Jamarian
there
Ficklin was
were
awesome.
there were
He's
rising
awesome.
juniors and seniors that obviously got left out of that field, but Rozzie Sperry made it in. So
Mm-hmm.
he looks like he's going to have a similar career arc as his older brother and will probably wind up with a lot of similar recruiting interest when that time comes for him. Uh, Peyton Houston, boy, I remember seeing him at the Rivals camp last year as an eighth grader and just going, man, he's small, but he has got it. And it was a little early to tell at that point. Like, is he really going to have what it takes physically to wind up one of the top quarterbacks in America in his class? I feel like now, as he gets ready to go into his sophomore year of high school, I can make that determination with Peyton Houston. He's
Yep.
filled out a little bit more. He's not super tall. Reminds me a little bit of KJ Lacey, the Texas commit, in that respect. He's not huge, but man, the arm talent is uncanny. He can zip that thing. It's a perfect ball every single time. He throws with anticipation, with touch, with accuracy. If he is not a top 5 quarterback in the 2027 class, when that cycle wraps, I will be very surprised.
Yeah. No, I agree. I thought Jamarian Ficklin was just, and I want to clear that Oklahoma's looking at him as an athlete right now, and he'll probably get a PWO from Oklahoma. He's visited Oklahoma on numerous occasions. Remember, Seth Luttrell is from Muskogee, so there is some invested interest on the Oklahoma side, and I think that he is more than capable of playing quarterback, wide receiver, corner, safety, whatever at the next level. Like, he's that good. Now, I think he's a quarterback. He's left-handed, but that dude can sling it. The numbers that he put up when they have a football that has measurements in them. It's got a GPS system. He was one of the best there. Spin rate, velocity, uh, torque, all kinds. It was ridiculous the numbers that he put up. He's a special talent. Once he gets a little bit more control of his ball, and I was talking to a quarterback coach today about that, and he was literally talking about Jamarian Ficklin and just how impressive he is as a player. And so, that's just a name to watch down the road. Oklahoma is not going to offer another scholarship quarterback in 25. It's just not going to happen. So, Sperry's their guy. And if they take anything, it's going to be Ficklin as an athlete and see where things fall when he gets to Oklahoma. I thought Malik Hawkins looked really good.
He did, man.
Yeah,
The
very
only guy that
physical.
got the better of him, I think, in the one-on-ones was Booby Feaster, which
Yeah,
that's understandable.
yeah, that's very fair. But I thought, sitting there with his dad and everybody knows Michael Hawkins Sr. is just a savant, right? Like, was at Oklahoma for like a month, goes elsewhere. Bob Stoops helps him and he gets drafted. you know, Plays Arena League, goes and plays in the. I think he played Arena League, didn't he?
He
Or
played Arena League for several
yeah,
years and wound up he played Arena League to bridge the gap because obviously it's a
yeah,
3-year
right,
period before you can enter the draft. So he
right,
played Arena League to bridge that gap and then got drafted in 05.
yep, and went to, I believe, the Packers first, and then the Cowboys after that. And he was sitting there talking to me like the receivers would line up. He'd be like, "Up, he's creating space to do this route." And sure as heck enough, that's the route that they would do. And like when Malik was covering, like Malik kind of knew what they were doing too. So there's a football IQ that is there with Malik Hawkins that is uncanny compared to a lot of other corners at his age. And that's where I think it gets kind of underrated. Like if you were going to rate kids strictly off athleticism, that's kind of what we do, right? And potential, but we don't ever really rank them and we don't put in the equation of that guy's got really good football IQ right now at this age. And
Yeah.
I think we should because he was jumping routes and like running the routes for them because he knew what they were going to do based on how they lined up in space, whether they're inside the numbers, outside that, or on the numbers, on the hash, like kind of. And that's what you do in real life when you're playing man. It's guessing on how they line up and do all that. It's tape, it's film, it's all that. But he's already doing that at a young age. So he's going to be ahead of the curve by the time he gets to Oklahoma, which I think is going to be big for OU and that cornerback room to add more depth. I thought that Zanro looked, I know you missed it, but like he
Being
was
15
so
years
good.
old,
He's so good. He's so good. 2027 OU commit, defensive end. Um, he he's special. 5 star. He will be a 5 star. I'm calling it. I'm just saying it. He will be a 5 star Parker. And then
yeah,
as
I mean
far as go
that's
ahead.
your OG commit of the 2027 cycle, and I would venture a guess that he winds up being your highest rated commit of the 2027 cycle. And that won't be because Oklahoma signs a bunch of scrubs in 2027 either.
Yeah. No, I agree. I guess lastly, let's and we'll talk more about rivals on another podcast, but um Caden Cooper, like if you're Porter Moser, what the hell, man? How do you lose a kid that wanted to be a Sooner his whole life? Like that right there, if you didn't think something was wrong inside the program, that just put a stamp on it.
Do you want me to speak?
Yeah, because
I
I'm tired of it. I'm tired of talking about it already.
I got nothing, man. It's not a good situation. It's not a situation that you can get excited about heading into year 4 of the Moser era. And I hope I hope what he can do is he can cobble together a roster and coach him up into a winning basketball team.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not confident the pieces are there right now. I think they need to make a couple of splashes. And I don't know, like, how big a splash can you make in the portal realistically at this point? I don't really know. But they need a couple guys, well, 3 guys now to cap off this transfer class that are more, they're going to be more than just bench fodder. And any way you slice it, man, it's been a really disappointing offseason. I think again, like, I don't think this past season was a disappointment. They didn't make the tournament, and to some, that in itself is enough to call the season a disappointment. And I get that, but if you told me that team was going to win 20 games before the season started, I'd have said no way in hell. And so, all in all,
Right.
I think Porter did a good coaching job to get that team to 20 wins, despite all the injuries that they had to deal with. But again, you cannot look objectively at that roster right now as it stands and be confident that it's going to be competitive, that Oklahoma is going to be competitive as a basketball program next year in the SEC. And if you miss the tournament 4 years in a row, heads roll. And we know who's heads, right? There's a lot riding on this season, and you
Maybe
do
a head that
not
should
want to
have
be
rolled
going into it
already.
undermanned. You do not want to be going into it undermanned. And right now, they are
Yeah.
undermanned.
Well, they got 8 guys on the roster right now, if that.
8, 9, 9. I think it's 9.
9. Okay. Well, anyways, real quickly, Jonah Williams, everybody keeps asking. Lori Brogdon, you've asked like 3 times, I think. I see you. I see you, and I'm going to answer your question before we get off here. Oklahoma's still in a decent spot. Not great as well as they were. I think they still lead, but that margin is a closing fast. It's going to be very, very, very vital that Oklahoma gets him back this month. Because if they don't, I would just go ahead and say Amarian Robinson, here Oklahoma comes. And I think how do I want to say this? You're not losing if you get a Marion Robinson. You're just not. Like there's a world where some people think that he may be the best safety in the country. And I'm not talking about at Oklahoma or anything like that. I'm talking about analysts, people that scouts those type of world that they believe that guy is the best. Jonah Williams may never play a down of football in college. He may get drafted in so it's always good to have, you don't want to lay all your eggs in that basket. And I think there's some schools that are doing that, particularly with Jonah Williams, which totally makes sense. But at the same time, you'll be caught with your pants down if he goes and plays Major League Baseball.
I love I love the fact, which by the way, amidst all this, and what I was going to say about the Amarian Robinson situation is I think it would kind of be like Jonah Williams will be this year's Bryant Wesco, where if he goes somewhere else, yeah, it sucks for a few weeks, but by the end of the cycle, you're not really bemoaning the fact that you didn't get Bryant Wesco with the way that class wound up for Emmett Jones and the wide receivers. I love that we have Josh Isosa in the comments section going, Dayton Forsyth finna average 35. Yeah, well, I don't know how much that kid's gonna average, but
is that really a Sosa?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
What's up, dude?
That's a real one right there. He's gonna be on the radio with me tomorrow. That'll be fun.
Oh, that's awesome.
But you'll see Dayton Forsyth next year, and you'll probably see him a lot. That kid is the truth. And again, you always have to wonder with any high school player that's transitioned to the collegiate level, how quickly does it translate? Regardless of what level they're coming from, it's a jump. But what Dayton Forsyth has continually proved throughout his high school career is that it does not freaking matter what level he competes against, or like what level the opposing team is on, because that kid's two-way in the state of Oklahoma. And he went up against that Rod Wave elite team, which is loaded with future college players. He was matched up with Jaden Nickens this past weekend and dropped 55 on him.
Yeah,
he can get buckets on anybody, man. And he is the X factor in my mind for Oklahoma next year. If he is ready to step in as a freshman and play a significant role for that team and be a scoring threat, and I think there's a very decent chance that happens. If it happens, that is what can elevate Oklahoma to the point where they can be competitive in the SEC. The front court needs work right now, but Dayton Forsyth can elevate you.
I'm going to quote a source I talked to today, particularly about Dayton Forsyth, and he said, and I quote, I know they're going to the SEC, but Dayton Forsyth would average 10 plus points in the Big 12 as a freshman. He's going to do just fine in the SEC. That to me says everything. This person knows ball.
That is the maybe I shouldn't speak that authoritatively. I think he's the best guard to come out of Oklahoma in several years. And I think he's probably the most underrated signing for Oklahoma as a program.
I agree with that.
In a decade, maybe longer.
Totally agree with that.
Nobody knows who Dayton Forsyth is outside of the state of Oklahoma. It's what it feels like. They're going to find out. They'll find out.
Yep, I totally agree. Hello, Kyle. Appreciate the 5, and we appreciate you, all that you do. You had one of the greatest YouTube pages of all time with all the highlights and everything that you used to do. I was an avid watcher. Back in the day before I got in the industry, I could not wait for the next day, and Hola Kyle would have his stuff up, kind of like Mr. McIntosh does. And Hola Kyle had the best preseason OU hype videos ever. Like him and LA Sooner were like the GOATs. So thank you. That means a lot coming from you, man. All right. That's going to do it for this version of the OU Insider Under the Visor YouTube Live. If you are not a member of OU Insider, go do it. It is popping over there right now. Lots to talk about. We didn't even touch the surface on everything that we talked about because our man Brody is over there kicking ass and taking names when it comes to transfer portal hoops news and notes. That front court Parker was talking about, boom. He's got it over there for you. Who Oklahoma's looking at, who they're close with, who might be visiting soon. Brody Luska's got it for you in the transfer portal basketball thread that has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of comments already. It's ridiculous. We have a transfer portal thread that's booming over there. We have two for football. One is just defensive tackle related. It's got like almost 200 comments, and you got the one that's got almost like 300 that's just the transfer portal, and those are only been up for like a week and a half. So not even that. I think only like a week. And so it's kind of amazing. It's flowing over there. There's a ton going on. People are starting their own comments. They're asking us questions. Parker and I are answering them. We're bringing news and notes on Williams the second we get it. We got notes coming on 25, 26, 27 targets. Oklahoma's out seeing right now and where they're going to be later on this week. We've been talking about that all week. I got a chat, VIP chat that I'm going to start tonight. You ask. We had almost 100 Q&A last week. I'm going to try to top that this week. It is going to be fun, fun, fun. You get that all over there as Jesse covers basketball, football, baseball, softball. Blake helps out with the baseball part, helps out, does the mulling it over. Like, we've got a ton on there, and we got some big news coming. We got some big additions to OU Insider family that is potentially taking place here in the next week or so. And those that have been following the message boards over the years are going to love it. They are going to love, particularly if you like podcasts and you like guys that know ball. So we've got that coming. And to make sure you're on top of that as well, you need to subscribe to this YouTube channel. But over there at OU Insider, $9.95 a month or $99.95 will get you all year, all to whatever day you sign up, all the way to that day in 2025. So that means you will get all the way through the season of basketball, football in the SEC. You'll get all the official visits, all the transfer portal stuff, the offseason. You'll get all the team notes, all the camp notes. There's going to be like 4 camps that Parker and I will be at with probably 70, 80 targets that Oklahoma's really in on that they've invited, if not more, that we will have notes on throughout the next month or two. Oklahoma's out on the road. We're going to have notes on that. I'm going to hit the road. Parker's going to hit the road. We're going to be out seeing kids. Like, it is going to be hopping the next few months on OU Insider, and you want to be a part of that right as it leads right into SEC Media Days and then to fall camp. So all that, off-season notes, team notes, everything's going to be happening over there on OU Insider VIP. All right. Subscribe to this YouTube channel, and that's going to do it. All right. For Parker Thune, Spencer Forsythe on the board, my name is Brandon Drum. You guys have a blessed night.